He said, this here right now? This here right now is urgent. Because I'm not going to be able to find this anywhere else. Woo. He got me with that line. I'm not going to hold you. He got me with that line. My little young self was got with that line. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pretty Suited Podcast, where we discuss career, culture, and commitment. I am your host, Lauren, and I'm so excited to be rounding out this February, this month of love, where we were showcasing some of our favorite couples in Black entertainment, particularly films. You guys have been showing a lot of love in these videos and kind of like, going down memory lane with me and talking about some of our favorite couples. So I want to end this kind of series with talking about not only my favorite films, but it was also voted as the #1 film showcasing Black love by the American Black Film Festival. And it is the greatest of all time, Love Jones. It's not voted as one of the favorites because of some big blockbuster budget or some twists and turns or anything like that, but it's voted that way because of how this movie made the culture feel. It was one of those movies that really showcased a realistic love in an urban situation. So it was released back in 1996 and it took place in the city of Chicago, where at the time was definitely finding its place in hip hop. You had artists like Common and so many other artists that was kind of showcasing more so of like a jazz approach to hip hop, where coffee shops were a thing. You had poetry, open mic nights were a thing, where young Black professionals were, corporate by day, but at night were creative. And I really enjoyed this time of music. I enjoyed this time of film. I enjoyed this time of fashion, where, they were really getting into who they were as young black people and what they can contribute to society. You have Nina Mosley, who is played by the beautiful Nia Long, and you have Darius Lovehall, played by the very fine Lorenz Tate. So Lorenz Tate's character, Darius Lovehall, you see him showcased as a guy who was very self-confident, very sure of himself. Everybody that frequented the main nightclub of this movie, the Sanctuary, you could tell that they knew who he was. You could tell he was a regular who showcased his talents on open mic night. And immediately you see how his self-assuredness was kind of caught off guard by the beautiful Nina Mosley.
White wine, please. Maybe you should quit smoking.
He stepped to her just like any man would, but also was turned down, probably for the first time in a while. And like most men those days, he was down for the chase. He tracked her down. He got her number, and, with much hesitation by Nina, of course, but ultimately they were able to go out, and then their love kind of flourished from there. But what I want to highlight goes a little bit beyond just the love story of boy finds girl, they fall in love, and the rest is history. I want to talk about the times. I know that, today we go on and on every podcast, on every blog, on every, comment section about how the dating pool has pee in it, how it is terrible to date out there, and how times have changed. And yes, there's much truth to that. But I think we don't necessarily cover the reason why. And I would say a lot of what I enjoyed about this movie, and I think a lot of people can agree, is that the love that Nina and Darius had was only made available based on the times that they were in. Like I said, during that time, poetry was a standard, it was a thing, it was a regular pastime and go to on a Friday night, on a weekend. Even the average person who worked a desk job, had a book full of poetry that they were tapping into because they felt they could contribute to that kind of artistic expression. So love was a common thing. To find love was a common thing. To want love was a common thing. And the music reflected that. The movies reflected that. And the art reflected that. Unlike today, not so much. I say that a lot of our music, TV, film, and everything else doesn't respect love as it did in the past. I say even now, so love is seen as a fleeting thought or something that can be manufactured in a tweet or something that could be disposed of and then obtained again. It's so disrespected in today's time that I couldn't even imagine cultivating something as organic as what Nina and Darius had today. I just don't see it. Unfortunately, I feel like we've gone so far detached from what love really is to where it's mainly transactional, it's empty, it is fleeting, and we don't choose each other to the point where it could be sustaining or even as fulfilling as it once was. And I hate to sound pessimistic, but I believe that is true. How likely are you able to organically fall in love with a person, really fall in love with a person, and you not be influenced by the negativity that surrounds us on a day-to-day basis and via social media? How likely is it? I'm not quite sure. Even him expressing how he felt to her in a setting that was poetry, in a setting that was so intimate, he was not afraid. He was unabashed in how he was able to express that poem to her. I remember being very young watching this movie and even blushing once I heard that poem by Darius. Everybody in that room was blushing when they heard that poem from Darius. Everybody wanted to be that girl in that room. There was nobody filming. There was nobody shaming. There was nobody tweeting about it. It was pure and unadulterated courting. And I feel like in a time where men pursued women with intention, I feel like that's kind of been a lost cause today. One of my favorite parts of this movie is when Darius and Nina go out on their first date. And so they went dancing and they found themselves just in a club. I'm talking just body to body dancing where electric chemistry was just happening. Nothing too vulgar. It wasn't no juvenile playing in the background, right? It was real, just let's get connected and look into each other's eyes. And it was just a beautiful thing to watch. I think every girl, whether it's Cinderella or Nina Mosley, every girl wants to be able to have that moment where she's dancing with her guy and they look into each other's eyes and they see each other for who they are and they fall in love. So in that moment, even just cinematically, that was one of those things that girls across the world just felt. Just going back to what I was saying, how that kind of love can be manufactured is different based on the times. It's not too many clubs today unless you go to, I would say, a Caribbean club or maybe a Nigerian club or some kind of, African club where dancing is a regular thing. Like who can fall in love in a club where Meek Mill is playing from beginning to end, and then City Girls and Glorilla? Like, what kind of club are you going to fall in love with like this? Where everybody's standing on sections with bottles popping and weed in the air. Like that's not setting the ambiance for love. And so that's just what bothers me. I feel like that's what bothers me the most is that we're not even setting ourselves up for success and how we move and what we like and what we do in today's society. It's not a good foundation for love to flourish. Like in today's time, with so many distractions that we have and rap beefs and twerking on tables and this and that, where it's not even at the forefront of our minds to be in love. We're so caught in, even in gender wars, that we can't even get together to have a poetry night. Like, and it'll turn into, well, this man did this and this girl did that. To where I'm like, we can't even get together and talk about love anymore. And so you do see kind of a rift happen in between them where they start to try to figure out if there is something there more than lust. And I think that should be talked about. A lot of times with whirlwind romances, you get so caught up on the lust and you forget about the love. And essentially, the lust is easy. The lust part is easy. Where if you're essentially attracted to a person, literally just off of looks or, just instinctual, that's the easy part. It is another thing for you guys to discover if there is something beneath that surface that still will hold you together. And I know for a fact, for me, I had to decide at a young age, was I looking for somebody who I was only attracted to physically, or was I looking for somebody who I was able to be attracted to platonically and romantically and spiritually and intellectually? Because those other things do matter and they carry you throughout the tough times. Because as you can see throughout the movie, as it started to hit the middle, those disagreements kind of like pulled them apart because they felt like they were arguing more than they were, being in love. I think a lot of their interaction in the beginning was lust. And so when they did decide to break up, when Nina's ex came back to kind of try to work things out with her, she thought that it was a good idea because he had those other things that she found to be attractive. He had the stability, he had the history because they were dating before. So she thought that was a better idea until she got there and then found out that he was lacking that instinctual connection that she shared with Darius. So that leaves you to feel a little conflicted. You feel like, okay, well, which one do I sacrifice? Which one is the most important? And I think in this scenario, she felt that earth-shattering, pulsing love and attraction that she felt towards Darius was something that she just couldn't get away from. And they ended up, getting back together in the end. And he said one of the most famous things. Every time I see it, I just get a shudder.
You always want what you want when you want it. Why is everything so urgent with you?
Let me tell you something. This here, right now, at this very moment, is all that matters to me. I love you. That's urgent like a motherfucker.
He said, this here right now is urgent. Because I'm not going to be able to find this anywhere else. Woo. He got me with that line. I'm not going to hold you. He got me with that line. My little young self was got with that line. Because unfortunately, going back to what I said, intention is something that you just can't buy these days with a free coupon. And I feel like what he was saying, that's something that I feel like a lot of women would like to hear. Because with a world with so many choices and so many options, it is very attractive to see a person that is intentional about you. Because that means that despite the distractions, despite what's going on around me, I want you and I need you to know that. And yeah, so shout out to Darius for that famous line because he might need to write a book, send it out in a newsletter, do something because What I appreciated too was also the image of Darius's friend, played by Isaiah Washington, telling Darius about the hardships of marriage.
Look, man, let me tell you something. People grow apart, all right? People change. But see, you wouldn't know anything about that. I'm saying it's just it. All y'all running around here jumping and hopping, skipping, diving, falling in love and shit. Falling in love ain't shit. Somebody talk to me, please, about how to stay there. Do I love my wife? Hell yes. Is she here? Hell no.
I think a lot of times when it comes down to men who are married, talking to men who aren't married, who happen to be in love, they almost dissuade them from wanting to continue on a romance and get married. Like they show them all the woes of marriage and never really the highlights of marriage or highlights of long-term commitment, to the point where that person gets second thoughts and kind of like self-sabotages just to kind of prove that person right. And that's not talked about enough, because I feel like that's the reason why a lot of men don't want to get married. It's because all they hear from married men is the woes of it, because it actually takes real effort to be married, right? Love is not something that is just a feeling, but it's also a choice. It's a choice to love people despite their flaws. It's a choice to adjust and adapt and do life together, not to the point where you're, overlooking red flags and abuse and things like that. But if you really want to do life with that person, if it's something that you truly want to do, you have to choose and show up every time. And a lot of times that journey doesn't sound appealing to a man when it's coming from other men. And so they choose not to do it, or they choose to prolong relationships as opposed to taking that next step to marriage. And so what Isaiah, I felt he did was to show Darius that, hey, this is hard. I'm going through this with my wife, and the fleeting love that you're feeling right now, that you're so infatuated with Nina, that's cute and all, but love really does take work. And so he showed him that, but he also, fortunately, was able to get back with his wife based on his choice to choose love. And I think that was something that Darius needed to see, because otherwise he would have just kind of just let the infatuation fizzle with Nina instead of going after her and pursuing her for the long haul. And I thought that was really good for them to showcase in the movie, because I think it's something that does plague a lot of men when they see love fail and not see the success based off of the choice to fight for it. So now let's get into our throwback tune. So this week's throwback tune, we're going to throw it back to a song that is on this soundtrack, on this Love Jones soundtrack, and it is the sexy playlist classic, Lauryn Hill's "The Sweetest Thing." This song, as soon as you hear the first few chords, you are automatically put back into the Love Jones era of burgundy lipstick and gorgeous locks. I feel like this song really was peak Lauryn Hill, where she had, separated from the Fugees and did her solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And it was her highlighting the other side of her artistry. You knew about the rap songstress part of the Fugees, but as she got into more of her singing bag on this song and really highlighted her sensuality in this song, and every time it just puts me into a mood of real strong Afrocentric, love and creativity. And I love this song. I really, really love this song. It was a different time. It was a time where, she was really growing into one of the greatest artists of our time. And it really kicked off what this tone of this movie was going to be about. Like, this song here made me feel like I was one of Nia's friends. I was one of Lorenza's friends. I was in that coffee shop listening to a spoken word that night. And I just would like to go back to that too. I would like to go back to real purposeful soundtracks that kind of like really highlight the movie, and it's something that you could revisit that only makes the movie better. You could feel how much she enjoyed being with this person, but you could also hear the fear in her voice because of how sweet this was. She didn't want it to end. She didn't want it to be too good to be true. It ties into how you think Nina felt when she met this Darius Lovehall, who just engulfed her with so much, intimacy and romance that she didn't know what to do with it. And you can hear that in Lauren's voice, and I just love the way that song makes me feel. If you don't have it already, get that on your playlist. I know it's past Valentine's Day, but it has to be there for your grown and sexy, honestly. So that brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series of us showcasing Black couples in film. I really enjoyed it. I know there's so many other couples out there that I hadn't even touched, but I just wanted to showcase just different types of couples that we've seen in some of our favorite movies. But, just continue to check it out. Continue to like, share, and subscribe, and send it to your friends. Again, just let me know what you would like to hear. DM me or leave a message or a comment below. And I just look forward to talking with you guys about different stuff. As always, you cannot manifest anything you don't feel like you deserve. So create the life that you want and look to the sky for grace. Bye-bye.